everybody, Zach Ditmars here for Fish Talk Magazine. Thanks for tuning in to another installment of Live with Lenny. Tonight's topic is going to be fishing bridges and the structural advantage. Before we get into things, I just want to thank our sponsor, Yamaha, for making this possible. We couldn't do it without our sponsorship. And if you head on over to fishtalkmag.com/Yamaha, you can find a whole list of mid-Atlantic service providers. If you haven't winterized yet, give them a call. If you're looking for a repower, give them a call. A lot of these dealers also service other brands as well. So, check them out. There's a map. It's all organized. You can find one near you. All right. Well, without further ado, I'd like to bring on my friend, the angler-in-chief, Mr. Lenny Rudo.
What's happening, Zach? Man, the theme music sounds like a little dark.
I think it's epic.
Epic? Ooh,
yes.
I like that. I'm calling it epic. Thank you.
All right. Hey, we don't really celebrate holidays too much, I don't know. They're all kind of Hallmark holidays, but I think we should make Fishmas like a real holiday.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think to get it going, I think we got to have certain things to really spread the word about it.
Oh my God, look at that. Holy cow. That is amazing. How did you pull that off?
The reader sent it in. Isn't that crazy?
Seriously? Oh my God, that is insane. I love it.
I was going to put it in your mailbox so you could wear it. You'll have to wear it for a couple weeks at least.
If I would put that on right now, if we were in the same building, not only because it's uber cool, but also because it's 13 degrees around here. It's cold.
It was 36 on my truck thermo earlier, but you know what?
Man, I love that. That is incredible.
Happy
Fishmas. And thank you, Mr. Happy Fishmas person, whoever you are out there.
Well, so tonight we're talking fishing bridges and various structure, but we got a lot to talk about before that. So we're going to go into the Great Chesapeake Invasive account, which is presented by Yamaha Right Waters.
Yeah, let's do some winners, man. We're gonna have some winners tonight. Give away some goodies. I also want to mention before we start this that at the end of tonight's episode, someone could also win a book from author Wayne Young about fishing bridges. So it's very appropriate. All you do is put in your comments or questions, and your name will automatically go into the digital hat. And this is a great time to remind everybody, please feel free to throw your comments and questions in there. That's why we do these live, and Zach will get them up and on screen, and we will address them. So without further ado, let's have some winners. Who's winning?
Well, first, we got to do a little rundown about what this is all about. We might have some new viewers that are not familiar with the invasive count.
Probably a good idea.
So the CCA Maryland, in partnership with Yamaha Right Waters, is doing an annual competition, the Great Chesapeake Invasive Count. And your catch of snakehead, flathead, or blue catfish can be entered for free to win some great prizes. And basically, you're providing data to fishery managers and being sort of a citizen scientist. So it's fun. And right now, obviously, snakehead are going to be hard. Now, they say on the warm days you can find them, usually using live bait. But catfish bite all winter long, and that's why this goes all winter long. So if you'd like to register for free, just go to that link right there, ccamd.org/count. And here on Live with Lenny, we give away the prizes for the monthly drawing. So,
and all you got to do is take a picture, right? Take a picture on a ruler, send it in. That's it.
That's it. Now, if you would like to do more, like gather some weight, maybe even some stomach contents, that is appreciated, but not mandatory.
I kind of like the stomach contents part myself. I mean, it's sort of fun to see what's in there,
I got a snakehead this summer. That's the only fish I think I entered this year. We got a bunch of cats too, but I let the other anglers enter those, and it was empty. It was a 28-inch snakehead with an empty stomach. So
I got a blue cat last year that I entered both the cat and the stomach contents in, and I think it had it was a big cat. It was like a 40-pound fish, and I think it had 680 little yellow white perch in it.
Wow.
That thing was stuffed. Probably wasn't quite that many. I might be exaggerating slightly, but it was something, it was a big number of perch in there.
And that's an indicator of why we got to put a hurting on these fish.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Who's winning? I love winning stuff. I know Heather Schubert loves winning stuff too, and we've got Fisheries. Don't worry if the style is not what you like. You get a gift card. So you can pick out whichever sunglasses strike your fancy. And these are nice sunglasses, Heather. And Richard Carlton also gets a pair of Marucci. Congratulations, Richard.
I should note that last month, Richard won the Engel Cooler. So,
oh, no way.
I mean, like, you could win every month. It's all random, you know, and as long as you're submitting a fish each month, you get into the next month's drawing. All right, so last month, we had David Sikorsky on talking about a special prize for December or for the November fishing. So,
ooh, a special prize. Michael Tarnick, congratulations, Mike. You win the Blackstone electric griddle. And that's a nice piece of cooking equipment right there.
Absolutely. And I got to say, Michael absolutely deserves this because Michael is our new Annapolis chapter CCA president, and he's just done remarkable things. And
yes,
it's just the Annapolis chapter of CCA is bigger than better than ever. Check out our Anglers Nights. I think we got one coming up in January. So check out those events and go and hang out. All right. So CCA is also currently doing a membership drive. And if you would like to become a life member, you can get a Blackstone grill for yourself. So basically, if you're a current life member and you donate $500, you get a Blackstone. If you are not a life member and you donate $1,000, you get a Blackstone. If you do a $1,500 donation, you get a really nice Blackstone. And that's going on through January 1st. So check out that link and consider lifetime membership to CCA.
And, you know, I just want to reiterate, I want to take this opportunity to reiterate, Fish Talk, myself personally, we're all big supporters of CCA. And for all you folks out there who fish on the bay, you all benefit from CCA's efforts. CCA really is dedicated to supporting the best interest of the anglers out there. A lot of people have kind of the wrong idea about the group. It is by anglers, for anglers, consisting of anglers. And these days, in most of our readership area in the Mid-Atlantic zone, there's no other entity, there's no other group, there's no other spokesperson who is sitting there at the table with the regulators when they're making all these crazy rules and regs we got to deal with. It's CCA. They're the ones who are there speaking up for us. So I would strongly encourage everybody out there to join up. It gives us as anglers a stronger voice.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said better myself.
Very important.
One more promotion that we'd like to make note of, and this is involving, again, the Great Chesapeake Invasive Count. If you sign up for the Great Chesapeake Invasive Count and also join CCA or renew, you automatically go into a raffle to fish with Mr. Captain Tom Weaver, which is just like, other than Lenny, one of the funnest captains to
He
fish.
is a lot of fun. He is a lot of fun to hang out with.
And
absolutely
fish, big fish, as you can see.
Yeah. And so just give me the rundown on that one more time, Zach. If you join during the month of December and join the Invasives count,
yep, you get thrown in the raffle.
You go in the raffle. Okay, cool.
For a 2025 trip, so that'll probably be, scheduling permitted, and then later this year. I actually just went on a pickerel trip with Tom last month and some CCA friends, and Mike Dardick actually, and Lars Whiting as well. So we had a great time.
Did you catch any fish?
I caught a trophy pickerel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right.
Well, that is definitely some encouragement right there to get in on the CCA action.
Yep. And actually, for years, Lenny and myself have done the CCA Pickerel Championship, and it is a great way to get out on the water and motivate yourself to, put the boat in and fish, even when it's like 28 degrees out, because we did that where your guides are freezing. Yep. And, I think 40 degrees is my personal threshold at this point. But Tom persuaded me to sign up again, and I caught a 24, so that was great. And then I caught another one a week later. So that runs all the way through February, and it's pretty cheap to get into it, and some really cool prizes for that as well. And there's tons of ways to win. It's your stringer of 3 pickerel, and then the largest pickerel caught from shore, from a boat, from a kayak, by a fly, a lady angler, youth angler, and then there's also Calcuttas for your slam of bass.
Biggest bass, biggest perch, biggest crappie.
It's a grand slam of pickerel, bass, yellow or white perch, and crappie. So I mean, and we can't catch all those as bycatch when we're targeting pickerel.
What happens is, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, people. What happens is you just kind of casually enter and you go fishing, and you catch like one really nice pickerel, and then you're like, "Ooh, I got a shot," and then you can't resist. The next week you got to go. The next week you got to go. The next week you got to go. It's tough to hold back on the temptation. And pickerel fishing is a ton of fun. They're not really fish that many people want to eat. They're riddled with bones, but they fight great. They're a real challenge. And when you hook that 26-incher and you're like, wow, that's something else. Take your picture, take your measure, let them go. It's a pretty cool experience.
And there's no shortage of big pickerel in our waters. I think I caught 5 citations one year. Wow. And I was 10th place. Oh. And there's some great anglers out there. So it's a fun, friendly competition. Check it out.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to get into talking bridges. But before we do that, I just want to mention to folks, quite often when we do this, we start out by talking about kind of current events, the fisheries, what's going on. And we're going to save that for the end tonight. I'm going to flip the script. We're going to start off with the bridges and then go to that. So you got plenty of time to put in your comments and questions about.
You have a couple comments already.
Already? Okay, well, wait a minute. Before we do them, we need to put up that link. Right now, people, there is a webinar going on advising people about the potential changes in the 2025 striped bass fishery. We are going to have changes again next year. It is going to get tougher. And the real reason is because that young of the year, again, was so awful. We just don't have the baby fish in the pipeline that we need to have. And the striped bass, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission Striped Bass Board looks at the numbers and does a bunch of number crunching and says, okay, taking this measure has X percentage of the fishery recovering within X number of years. And what happened was when we had that awful spawn again this year, they kind of have to recalculate that. So we're looking at a number of possibilities here. I'm not going to take a best guess as to which they're going to be, but if you follow this link, there's a gigantic PDF. It's like 8,000 pages. You can scroll through the first 60 or 70, and you get down to the part where it talks about 2025. And that's what you want to pay attention to. And we can talk later on about some of the possibilities, what 2025 might hold, what's going on right now on the bay. But first, let's talk bridge fishing after we address the comments that have already come in. What do you got, Zach?
Randy asked if you've heard any reports of migratory fish yet in the bay.
Yes. So if you read last week's reports really carefully, you might have picked up, it was just a mention, that a over 40-inch fish was caught in the Rappahannock. I've also heard scuttlebutt about other trophy-sized fish south of there, but in the bay. And we don't put scuttlebutt in the reports. We only put in a report if, like, we know it happened. So I don't give them too much weight. But yeah, there are some very early reports. Of course, I'm sure everyone's heard about the bluefin going off at the beach. It seems to be setting up very much like last year, where the fish pushed down really fast in a sort of a compressed time frame, got here, kind of stayed here, and hopefully they'll do the same thing. Hopefully they'll move all the way up into my neighborhood. I certainly hope so. And one really nice sign that gives me a lot of hope for this is the fact that right now there are huge shoals of bait, like all over the place. Now, it's kind of weird. They're not right up top like usual. I haven't been able to put eyeballs on this bait and say, it's bunker. I can't imagine it's all anchovies. But for whatever reason, it's not sticking right up top. But when you look at the side scan, man, you just drive through areas where there are just hordes and hordes of schools of bait. So hopefully it'll set up good. And in the next few weeks here, we'll see more and more. I have not seen this week's reports yet. I'm very curious. They should come in tonight from Dylan. I'm very curious to see if we have more on the trophies heading up the bay.
And thank you. And thank you, Randy. So Will had a question that's actually like probably could come up later, but it probably wasn't part of your presentation. So let's just, I'll have you speculate on it now. So what impacts can be expected if the 2 spans of the Bay Bridge are replaced with 2 new spans, as they are talking about? That's the new plan.
Well, that's a tremendously interesting question that I'm afraid I just can't give any insight on, because we don't know yet, exactly where, what types of pilings. All the pilings do seem to have different effects, which we'll talk about a little later. I just don't know. Now, I do want to add to that. I think in the last 10 years, I've heard about 568 different plans for the new Bay Bridge, ranging everywhere from north of Baltimore to south of Maryland. It's like, I don't know, man. I understand that they're saying they're going to do that right now, but I'm waiting to see it.
Well, whatever happens, all I can say is that I've caught a lot of fish on the old 450 bridge on the Severn River, where there's bridge rubble that remains.
Yes.
And also where the old train track went over across the Severn. I've caught a lot of fish off that point too. So I think regardless of what happens, if they do demo the bridges, there will be some significant structure as well as new structure. So it might not be great, but eventually it'll be great. If there's any rockfish left. Oh, moving on.
Quickly moving on. Give me slide one, please. Quickly. Yeah, had to bring that up already. Okay, let's bring up slide number 1, please, Zach. And this is of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. That won't shock anybody. I want you to look at the girl in the middle and the little boy to her left, your right. Those are 2 of my kids. That's Molly and Max, both of whom are now college graduates. And, the bridges have been there for a long, long time. They've produced fish for a long, long time. They produce fish today. You can see in the background some of the different piling styles we were talking about. We're going to look at more in a minute, not just at the Bay Bridge, but for other bridges too. I don't want to focus on just one spot because there are a lot of commonalities between bridges. But of course, in the upper and middle Chesapeake, this is kind of the granddaddy of them all. But you can see there's some 4 pilings above Max there, and there are some 2s on either side. Let's go ahead and take it right to the next slide, please, Zach, because this shot is from last year. So here we are, 16, 17 years after that first shot in about the same place, and we're still catching fish. So why does this happen? Structure is the obvious answer, but it's only one of the answers, right? And when you're fishing the Bay Bridges, as a general rule of thumb, fishing right on that structure is going to be your top bet. It's not always going to be the case in all the places we're going to talk about, but here it's a top bet. Go ahead and take me right to the 3rd slide, if you would, please, because this shows my very favorite. This is, I call them the spider pilings. I don't know if there's another name for it. This right here is on the east side North Bridge, right after the old Susquehanna Riverbed Channel shoots up from 80, 90 feet all the way up to 24, 5 feet. This set of pilings is, in my book, one of the best around. The first one is awesome. The second one is also awesome quite often. And part of the reason here is because not only do we have the structure, we have the structure right near this big giant depth change. And this will carry on across all the different bridges you might try and hit anywhere, in a reservoir, in the bay. I don't care where it is. When you've got pilings adjacent to a natural structure, like that sharp channel edge coming up, It's like a double whammy. You got a couple things working in your favor. A couple other things I want to mention that this slide illustrates. You can see how there's an area between these two sets of pilings. We were casting literally in between them. And I almost always find that that is the best way to fish these particular pilings. Actually throw your lure inside of the pilings, okay? And you might want to let it sink a little. You might want to let it sink a lot. It varies depending on the day, the tide, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is get it inside of that structure. Now, let's see, just west of this piling, there's a very different one that has two legs coming down and join in the middle. Now, what you can't see underwater is there's another open area and then another joint in the middle. And at that particular piling, you generally want to cast and let it sink until it reaches that depth of that second opening. That's often a really good spot. But again, what you're doing is you're getting not just next to the structure, but in the structure. Now, the other thing about this shot, and I know you folks at home can't see this, but trust me on this. This was fished on an outgoing tide, and I'm on the upcurrent side of the pilings. Now, a lot of people think that the fish hide in the, let's call it the tide shadow, behind pilings. Well, you know what? Sometimes they do. And you certainly can have some bang-up days casting into that eddy behind the pilings. But the fact of the matter is, if a fish is sitting in the no current or the low current area, it's a resting fish. It's not on the hunt. Most of the time, in the big picture, if you cast the upcurrent side, you got a lot of advantages. First off, the fish you're presenting your lure to are active fish that are hunting. Second off, if you fall a little short and let it sink, the current's going to sweep you back into that structure. So with an outgoing current at this particular spot, you can cast right into the mouth of those pilings, get a good 10-second sink, and actually be on the down current side of those pilings, and then retrieve through them. Big advantage. Again, I'm not saying you're never going to have a good day casting on the down current side of the pilings. That's not my intent here. But if you fish piling, this particular piling or any of the pilings on the bridge, fish them 20 times and make sure you cast down the down current side and the up current side every time. Over the long haul, eventually, I think you're probably going to say, wow, you know what? The up current side is more productive. That's where I end up catching more of my fish. One final thing before we move on to the next slide about not just this piling in particular, but the bridge in general. This picture was not taken by me. I think Max actually took this. I was on the throttles jockeying the boat, constantly working it to keep the boat casting distance out in front of that piling as the current was pushing us back towards it. A lot of people anchor by the pilings. That just makes me nervous. I'm always a little worried that something could happen. The anchor could drag, whatever. And the next thing you know, my boat's going to be in those pilings. It makes me personally very paranoid. So I don't do it. Now, if you've got a trolling motor with spot lock, you're gold, right? I would still leave the outboard running in that case, just so that if something happened with the motor, I mean, you never know. It could lose its GPS fix. You could run out of battery, whatever. You can still react quickly and keep the boat off the pilings. But, it's a personal decision. If you feel comfortable anchoring, by all means, go for it. If you don't, I don't think you need to stress so much over it. You can jockey the boat, use the trolling motor, whatever. There are a lot of different ways to fish these pilings. And you know what? They're all valid. And, sometimes you'll have one guy who's anchored, another guy who's drifting, and the guy who's anchored gets ticked off with the guy who's drifting. The guy who's drifting gets ticked off with the guy who's anchored. Look, it's all valid. It's all public water. Fish it however you're comfortable, but fish it because, there are fish around that structure. All right, let's go ahead to the next slide, if you could, please, Zach. We're going to a completely different bridge, very, very far away. This is the CBBT. This is our reports editor, Dylan Wooders. And you can see he's holding up a very nice flounder that was caught this summer. And what I wanted to illustrate with this picture was the fact that you don't necessarily have to be right up on that structure to catch certain species at certain times in certain places. If you're fishing for rockfish around the bridge, yeah, you want to be right up on the structure. If you're fishing for flounder at the CBBT, you do not have to be. And I forget exactly why we had drifted off the bridge when this happened. I was probably messing with something on the boat. Dylan was fishing. He hooked this beautiful flounder. Excuse me. When you're in a high current area, like the mouth of the bay at the CBBT or at the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and you look at the piling, you can see that current swirl going well beyond where that piling is, right? I don't know, 50 yards? It depends on the current. But what the fish like this flounder are looking for is not necessarily to be sitting right on the structure, but to have that current and to be able to hunt bait fish that are fighting that current. So if you're fishing a bridge for a different species in rockfish, like a flounder, you may well be totally comfortable getting off of it. So here's Wayne's chiming in. He's saying hydrodynamically, there's a downward current vector right down the pier that delivers bait to the bottom right in front of the pier where the stripers are waiting to pounce. And it's interesting that Wayne chimed in on this because, Wayne, I'm going to surprise you later. I actually grabbed one of your illustrations that we're going to talk about how that current around the bridge works. So stay tuned. That's some awesome timing. That's pretty funny. Zach, just for the record, I don't think you should put Wayne's name in the hat to win Wayne's book. Okay, let's leave him out of that one. All right. So what I want to mention here, I also wanted to mention fish like sea bass, sheep's head, super duper structure oriented fish are the ones who are going to be right up on that structure. Ones that aren't like the flounder are not. It's an interesting thing to think about the fact that like on the offshore wrecks and reefs, when you flounder fish there, you don't want to drift right over the structure. You want to drift right next to it. Same kind of concept, same kind of thing in play here. All right, next slide, please. We're going to go to an extraordinarily different bridge in an extraordinarily different body of water.
Real quick, while I find that slide, will you just remind some of the new viewers about the giveaway this evening?
Yes, well, we're giving away one of Wayne's books. Wayne has written many books that deeply examine wrecks, reefs, structure in the bay and beyond. And when he found out that we were doing bridges tonight, he was like, oh, yeah, one of my bridge books. Yep, this is going to be the prize. And I was like, perfect.
So just basic participation gets you in that drawing. Any comments?
Right. All you got to do is make a comment, ask a question, and boom, your name is in the hat. So here's the next slide. Obviously, very different body of water. This is a reader photo. Reader caught this fish, sent it in. Beautiful, crappie. And this is at a bridge at Deep Creek Lake. And I don't care what reservoir you're at, anywhere in the mid-Atlantic, and this honestly may well go way beyond the mid-Atlantic. If there's a bridge with pilings in water deeper than 5 or 6 feet of water, you want to visit it. You want to check it out. When you get those pilings in 15, 20 plus feet of water, they are crappie magnets. There is not a bridge in a reservoir anywhere in the mid-Atlantic range that does not at some point in the season have masses of crappie sticking around it. I don't care what you're talking about. Deep Creek, Loch Raven, Liberty, Lake Anna, doesn't matter. If there's a bridge with pilings in the water, crappie will congregate around it. Now, this is obviously a structure-oriented thing, right? And we all probably know that crappie love hanging out around structure. They'll suspend at different depths. So when you do find them, you may have to fish different depth levels of the bridge. And again, it can be seasonal, right? In some areas, you'll find them there fall, winter, spring, and others in the summertime. It depends a little bit on the specifics, but absolutely something you want to check out. But here's what's interesting. Not only in reservoirs, but also in the broader picture, in all different kinds of waterways, the structure isn't the only thing we're looking for. Zach, go ahead and take us to the next slide, if you would, please. This is also Deep Creek. And I want you to look in the center of the photo down low. You'll notice the bridge going across the lake there. And what you see is a significant pinch point, right? The lake's big, it gets really tight, and then it gets big again. Well, if you look at a chart of the Chesapeake Bay, you'll notice the exact same thing about where the Chesapeake Bay Bridge is. It's a squeeze in the waterway. It's an area where the water's broad going across, and then it squeezes in, and then it's broad again. And you get a couple things out of these squeezes. The first one is if you're in an area with current, the current gets greatly magnified, right? As the land squeezes together, it accelerates the flow of the water. And of course, the fish are looking for current. Not only do you have more current when it's ripping, you've also got some current when many areas not far away, could just be a mile or two away, have basically none. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Now, here we're looking at a picture of a reservoir. Even in a reservoir, you've got a river at one end and a dam at the other. There's going to be some level of current. And in the main body of the reservoir, it's probably going to be minute, maybe not even detectable in those cases. But when you get a squeeze like this right here, when it gets that tight, you're going to have some level of noticeable current. You're also going to have a tight channel. It's probably going to be deeper right there than it is elsewhere. Because when that channel was a river before the reservoir was dammed, that's right where it cut in between some high ground. You're also going to have sharper drop-offs on either side. You have a lot of good stuff in a squeeze like this. Now, the bridge builders don't do it for us, right? I wish they would. I wish they would build another Chesapeake Bay Bridge, 10 miles north and 10 miles south of the Bay Bridge. We'd get a lot more structure. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Hold on, is it D-Train? Hold on 1 second. But the other thing I wanted to mention here is the fact of the matter is building bridges is expensive, right? It ain't cheap. The shorter the bridge you got to build, the less expensive it is. So quite often you're going to have bridges at these pinch points. Now, should we be using a bobber for crappie? In lots of situations, yes. In this particular situation over bridge pilings, probably not. Most of the time, you're going to have some deeper water. Tom, you absolutely jig from around bridges. This is getting right to what I was about to say. Most of the time, I'm just going to use for the sake of argument, say it's the pilings at Loch Raven where it's like 30 feet deep, okay? You got pretty deep water. Most of the time, the crappie on those pilings are going to be between 15 and 25 feet, maybe 10 and 25 feet. They're not going to be right up top where a bobber would really be applicable. You could use a slip bobber. The way we used to fish those pilings when I was a kid was you would stand up on the bridge. There's little fishing areas there. You'd stand up on the bridge, cast out, and then grab the line when it got like 20 yards out. So it would swing down and pendulum under the bridge. Then you let go. And it would go flying behind the bridge. Then you would close your bail, and your rig would just slowly kind of sweep. It would pendulum back down and sweep along those pilings and cover a wide depth range. And at some point through there, hopefully you get bit. And a very effective way to fish. Works quite well. Another example that comes to mind is Lake Cadorus in Pennsylvania. I've gone up there and ice fished quite a bit, and I'm going to give you the wrong number if I say first bridge, second bridge, the really big bridge where it crosses the main lake. Quite often, if the ice is thick enough, because you got to watch the ice thickness around bridges because of road salt and warming and all that stuff. But if the ice is thick enough that you can get right up to those bridge pilings and cut a hole, I forget exactly how deep the water is there, but it's really deep. I'm pretty sure it's more than 30 feet, might be 40. But very regularly, you'll find crappie exactly midway between the ice and the bottom. And you just jig right at midway. Same deal with a lot of these. Lars is saying he caught many crappie on Nicodemus over Liberty, fishing at night while hanging down a Coleman lantern. Dang! That's slick, Lars. That's a good idea. I like that. So that's interesting. Lars, you are dating yourself here, because by the time I started fishing these bridges, they made it you couldn't park after dark. There was some not so awesome stuff that happened in those areas after dark, I guess when I was in high school, and all those areas became no parking after dark. So Lars, you seriously just dated yourself right there. Darius is saying he catches a ton of crappie in DC by the paddle boat rental off the balconies. Cool. Yeah, they love the structure, and any freshwater body goes for rivers too. Anywhere you've got these bridge pilings, the crappie are going to load up by them. I just want to add one final thing on this note is that what I love to do on the boat when I'm fishing around these bridge pilings for crappie is take a 1/8 of an ounce ball jig head and put on a red and white tube jig and just drop it down 10 feet, jig, 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 drop it down 5 more, jig, 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 drop it down 5 more, jig, jig, jig. Man, the crappie, tear that up. Pat's asking about the bridge shade factoring in the summertime. Absolutely. Like, no question. It absolutely will. To different degrees in varying fisheries with different species. But yeah, shade, particularly in the summertime when that water is hot, man, the fish are looking for it. The example I always like to use is right here at home. I go perch fishing in the evening sometimes. And once, like, I don't know, mid-June hits, every fish is in the shade. Like, they're all in the shade. They're looking for it. You got to find areas where there's shade intersecting with structure to catch fish. So shade's a good thing. All right, why don't we go to the next slide, Zach? Lars is saying I'm 1 year older. You must have started earlier than me, because I'm sure you remember too when all that parking became only during daylight. It's a big bummer, especially for walking in at Liberty. There were some great places you had to hike into where you catch walleye at sunset. And when they made it, I mean, I got my ticket. I got my ticket, fishing till sunset, then hiking out. And I even approached the vehicle as the officer was writing the ticket, and he did not say a word to me as I bemoaned the fact that I was just fishing. He didn't so much as grunt. All right, go ahead and take us to the next slide if you would. Amped up, love fishing the bridges this time of year. Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's a silver buddy?
Silver buddy time. Well, we probably shouldn't, we'll leave that to the viewers to determine for themselves.
I thought that was those little minnows, those old school little minnows.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Silver buddies. Yep.
Another question. When jigging the Bay Bridge pilings from the channel edge and shallower, do you favor stage of the tide, jig head weight, and preference?
Jig head weight and preference is generally going to be 3/4 of an ounce to an ounce. It does change depending on the intensity of the tide and how deep the fish are. I love doing it with a 1/2 ounce, but it's just fun. But you can't get away with it most of the time. And I don't like to go much heavier than an ounce, A, because you start snagging stuff, and B, because it's just, it's a lot to cast and jig all the time. As far as stage of the tide goes, yes, but it changes, right? There are going to be times of the year when the first of the incoming is what they're hitting on. And there are going to be times of the year when the first of the outgoing or the last of the outgoing is going to be what they're hitting on. That just changes. I don't want to make any blanket statements. Now, that said, the last hour of either tidal cycle is generally a really good time. Often the first half hour of the next tidal cycle is generally a really good time. But those are, blanket statements. It'll change. It's something you got to stay in tune with season to season, sometimes week to week. A lot of variation there. Lisa's saying, what can you tell me about the 301 bridge near Colonial Beach? Boy, I don't know if Eric's watching right now, but I wish he were, because he could have a lot more to say about it than me. Lisa, honestly, I'm not the best person to ask about that. I fished it a fair amount. Oh, God, not 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was back in school and I was in St. Mary's County. It was a pretty short drive. But that was a long time ago, and I am not current on it. So, Eric, if you're on today, please chime in. Wayne might know a little more about that. That's kind of getting down to his neighborhood, but that's just, I don't want to steer you wrong, Lisa.
So the silver buddy is the original blade bait. basically metal and weighted with lead. So,
Okay. See, I thought he was talking about Coors Light.
oh, that's a bullet. Come on.
So the blade bait is a great bait for that stuff. It is. It's a great vertical jigger. And what's nice is you can also cast and retrieve it. And the blade bait I have found is a really good one for crappie, yellow perch, white perch that are schooling up. I know a lot of guys fish them a lot for bass and have a lot of luck for them. That was never my favorite for bass, but a lot of guys do use them for that too. All right, let's get to the next one here. This is going to be a quickie, people. It's just an illustration of what we've been talking about. This is a bridge on the upper Magathy. As you can see, the only pilings in the water are right at the edges. It's very shallow. They don't do anything for you, but you can see this angler is catching a fish well away from the bridge. This is because you've got that squeeze. You've got that channel. And on either side of the bridge, even as the water opens up, you've still got that channel. It's an area you want to investigate. I forget what he was fighting. I saw him catch it. It wasn't a perch, but we were all perch fishing that day. This was in the middle of the winter some years ago. But, again, it's just a reminder. Some fish, you do want to be on the structure right up on the pilings. Other fish, other times, not necessarily. Investigate that channel. Look for the structure that natural squeeze where that bridge is providing you with. All right, let's go ahead to the next one. Wayne, you're going to love this one. This is right out of one of Wayne's books, which we publish articles in the magazine on a monthly basis. And I had seen this one in one of the things he had written recently. And when I started putting together tonight's presentation, I was like, oh, I know that Wayne's got the perfect graphic to illustrate this. Now, it's not really a picture. It's a graphic. This is from the bathymetric attributed grid. Wayne, correct me if I said that wrong. Which basically you're looking at like an underwater scan, right? And the green spots going across there are the bridge pilings. They're solid. The orange is shallower water, and then the yellower, you see deeper water. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a bridge over the Potomac up near DC where there's a constant current that is going from upriver to downriver. And what this graphic shows you is the downriver of pilings, you've got yet another structure, and that's scours. Wherever you've got heavy current hitting these pilings, that water, Wayne was talking earlier about the vector it creates that goes down. You're going to have scouring around these pilings. You're going to have deeper areas. And this is just creating yet more structure that's attracting fish. Now, at this particular bridge up in DC, what is this attracting? Well, let's go ahead to the next slide, please, Zach. Catfish, blue cats. Zach, you were on board when this picture was taken. Do you recall how many blue catfish we caught there?
Oh, 30 plus?
At least. I think the total length, remember we're keeping track of length, I think the total length was like 815 inches.
Yeah, you wanted to go to 1,000, and I was like, no, let's go bass fishing.
Yes, that's correct. That's good memory. That's right. We caught an extraordinary number of blue cats there. And we fished several different areas of the river. And without fail, we did the best just off of these pilings. And the catfish weren't on the pilings themselves. It wasn't like you had to cast up and hit the concrete. They were around them, working in areas like these squeezes, these channels, these scours. And boy, were there a lot of those catfish there. It is definitely another feature you want to keep in mind wherever you find a bridge. But again, this is bridges with currents. Like if you looked at the same thing in Deep Creek, I doubt very much you would see scours behind the pilings. Liberty, Loch Raven, Lake Anna. Lake Anna's even there. I don't think you would, with that level of current, you're not likely to see those scours. But in somewhere like the Potomac, heck yeah, you're going to have those scours behind those pilings. All right, one more slide. Let's yank it on up, Zach.
Wayne chimed in about the bridge. You want to?
Absolutely. Let's hear what he had to say.
And this is for Lisa's question earlier.
All the old 301 piers were removed. Demo material now at Hog Island Reef and Point No Point Reef. Trying to get coordinates for Point No Point. Hog is, oh God, I have to go to the glasses. MATL, I'm not sure what, material. is in a long line from northeast to southwest. What's left on the bottom at 301 to be determined. New bridge has lots of piers. Which will be best? Still developing. Okay, so that's right. I even forgot when I saw that comment that they built a new bridge, which is very interesting because that, I guess it'll take some time to see how that does develop, where the fish end up liking it. I would bet on, again, looking at the similar kind of things, the pilings nearest the channel edges, generally speaking, that's really good. There will be times a year, like in the spring, when the water's warmed up but isn't hot yet, where the shallower pilings are likely to be good. And then once it gets real hot, they might shift deeper again. But that's interesting. Thank you, Wayne. Thomas is saying, what kind of bait we're using for the blue cats? We had it all, Thomas. We had chicken livers. We had cut bunker. We had, what else did we have, Zach? I know we had more. Bloodworms. Did we have live minnow?
We had live minnow, I think, but wasn't cut bait always the winner, wasn't it?
The cut bunker. So everything worked to some degree, but the cut bunker did really kind of, take the cake. As I recall, the chicken livers did extremely well, but the downside there was if you missed a bite, you lost your bait. Whereas with the bunker, you probably still had your bait. But the bunker did, it kind of topped everything. So my advice would be get the bunker if you can, and if you can't, get the chicken livers, but get lots of them. Matthew's saying, what time are you fishing for the blue cat? That was in early November. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. It's Fish for a Cure. So it was first or second weekend of November about 2-3 years ago.
But they will bite all year round, Matthew. These blue cats will be feeding through the winter. Particularly, so just from the last couple of years of reports, we hear about them constantly in the Susquehanna, pretty much anywhere in a channel within sight of the Route 95 bridge. All winter long, the reports just flow in. In the Potomac, the reports just flow in. And when we fish the Potomac for blue cats farther downriver, I don't want to say it wrong. It was Goose. We were at a Goose Creek Marina, and we did not go far. That was in February, and we had an excellent bite. We enjoyed constant action. It was late February. So these blue cats, this is a constant thing.
Yeah, we fished during the closure in July, and 4 boats loaded up, and we donated them all cherry.
So there's a summer one. Where was that?
Patuxent.
In the Patuxent. And that was like halfway up, right?
Chalk Point area.
Yeah. So that's, pretty far up. But again, these blue cats, man, they don't stop eating. They really don't ever seem to stop eating.
Hey, Mike, I used to work with Mike.
What's up, man? I see the guitar. And Mike says he's been going for blue cats with cut chicken breast coated in strawberry jello powder. Stays on the hook much better than liver, and they bite it nonstop. So, Mike, I have constantly this is something that it's a thing. I've constantly been told the raw breast with the jello is a great thing. I can't tell you I've tried it, but thanks to have confirmation. And who would have thunk it? Jello. I actually read somewhere once why there's a theory as to why it's so effective. I forget what it is, but there is a theory out there. So, it's a thing. And Mark's saying if you wrap your liver in a small piece of stocking, you won't lose your bait as much. That probably is true. That certainly sounds right. And I know that in other fisheries, when people are fishing with kind of gooey bait or bait that doesn't stay on the hook very well, they do that. Sometimes put a tight little mesh bag around it. So, yeah, there's another idea for you, people. Lots of catfish baits you can use. Jason saying blue cats school up hard in the winter. Eat anything you throw at them. They definitely do school up hard. And they will eat just about anything quite often. I will say I've had some tough days too, particularly when a really strong front pushes through. The pressure change does seem to mess with them sometimes. And on those occasions, remember, Zach, we had a day in the Patuxent where that happened, and we were fishing chicken nuggets and bunker and all kinds of weird stuff. We tried all kinds of wacky stuff. Castle burgers, as I recall. But the bunker really it got a lot more bites than the other stuff.
We were actually using gizzard shad, just to correct you. Sorry to correct you.
Oh, gizzard shad. Okay.
But,
Okay.
the freshest cut bait you can get is either one,
Cut bait. Yeah.
But,
yeah. And every days, but that's like any fish. I don't care what fish you're talking about. There are days when they just don't want to eat for whatever reason, usually related to weather. It could be related to runoff, right? Radical temperature changes. There are a lot of different reasons, but as Jason said, even got them on top water. That's pretty cool. That's
Packer catches them on chatterbaits,
Yes, a lot of guys fishing with chatterbaits. Gizzies and Jello is my wife's go-to.
No, he's saying glizzies.
Glizzies. What's a glizzy?
You don't know what a glizzy is?
I don't know what a glizzy is.
It's a hot dog.
Oh, come on.
I swear. That's the new slang for hot dog.
Oh, man. Okay. I've never heard that one. That's
yeah,
big.
But, yeah.
The Jello's got to do something. I don't know what, but it's got to do something. All right. We got one more slide, and we're running out of time, and we still want more time to field questions.
We have a lot of questions. I'm holding back.
Okay. Well, let's get to that last slide. Let's get through it, and then we can do our lightning rounds. There it is. One final thing about bridges that they provide us anglers with is access. Now, I don't know if you want to sit on a chair in the middle of the road on some of the bridges we've talked about today, but, on a quiet country road, maybe so. And a lot of bridges, not all, but a lot of bridges give us access. So that's another highlight to them. And the great thing is where you have the access, often it's a really good spot to fish. Of course, you'll also often find boat ramps next to bridges, which really comes about more or less just because the entity, the state or the county or whatever, owns the land by the bridge. So it turns out to be a pretty convenient place to put a boat ramp. But don't sell bridges short. And if you're landlocked, don't have a boat, middle of winter, your boat broke down, whatever, bridges are a great place to go. It's an awesome opportunity. All right. Now let's see. What have we got? We're at, we've already gone over 50 minutes. Zach, start rolling them on, man. Let's start hitting questions. I'm really curious to see what kind of current event questions we have. I know I've got a lot of thoughts on what's been going on lately on the bay, but what do you got? Hit me.
Hold on.
Now you got to find the questions, right?
Yeah.
And we got to remember to pick a winner for Wayne's book.
How would you tackle a structure?
Hey, what's going on?
How do we go?
Wow, man. That's a whole different ball of wax. Tackling structures such as dams like Conowingo. I think that is a whole nother ball of wax. Now, you got, another on dams. Herb saying above and below dams where you're allowed to fish, offer great structure and current. Totally true. Below Conowingo is an example. Totally true. The how-to part, like the upside of dams, and this goes for any dam, right on down to the dams on the mill ponds on the Eastern Shore, tiny little ones, big giant, whatever. You got the super deep water. Now, in a lot of cases, you're not allowed to fish right up to the dam, probably so you don't get sucked through it. In some cases, you can fish right up to the dam, but that super deep water is, I'm not just talking like right up next to it. There's often that, great example comes to mind is Y Mills Lake on the Eastern Shore. The whole lake, the deepest water you see is 6 feet, and then you get right near the dam, and to say maybe, 30 yards out, and there you've got 10 feet of water. That's kind of a mini example, but that sort of holds true. I want to say always, and then I always tell myself, don't say always, because there's going to be an example you'll be wrong, but I can't think of any examples where you don't have that super deep water on the upside of the dam. Then on the downside of the dam, of course, you got the spillway, tons of turbulence, current, rocks, really good stuff. Below Conowingo is, certainly a highlight for a lot of anglers who fish up that way. My dad actually used to go up there when he was a kid, years ago. That was that back then you could walk the catwalk and fish it. These days you can walk down on the bank and cast out into it. Highly productive for a lot of different species at a lot of different times in a lot of different ways. So I'm not sure I can get a whole lot deeper into how to fish them because there's a lot to talk about there. I will mention that, like particularly at Conowingo, distance matters. A lot of guys who fish that a lot come armed with a surf rod, and there are a lot of times throughout the course of the year when you can catch rockfish casting plugs, but you got to get it way, way out there to really have a good shot. And then also, you'll find walleye in there. There's a whole lot going on. So Patrick's saying, what's the opinion of the Big Ben Parker flutter spoons? I've seen them becoming popular recently when fishing for stripers. Thanks for the question. And thank you for making the question, Patrick. So here's the thing about flutter spoons. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know the Big Ben in particular. There are a lot of flutter spoons out there. They sort of were all the rage, I want to say 3 years ago and 2 years ago. And then you started hearing a little less about them, but they're still a thing. And it's kind of one of those things where different types of lures sort of come and go and have a hot time in the tackle shop. Flutter spoons work, period. When you're jigging for rockfish, they absolutely will get bites. Like, there's no question about it. They're not generally my personal top pick. I think because they don't sink like a jigging spoon, and I want that faster sink. You still get a pretty quick sink, but not as fast as like a traditional jigging spoon. And when you don't need that super fast sink to get super deep or fight a current or whatever, a jig will generally work. But on the whole, they're highly effective lures. I had out, actually, it was Alex from Anglers. I think it was 2 years ago. He was fishing a jigging spoon. I was fishing a jig. I think it was a 6-inch BKD skirted, or maybe a 1 ounce head. And you know what? We were one then the next, one then the next, one then the next. We were side by side steadily, kind of, 50-50. So they definitely work. I'm not sure. I don't want to say that they're going to work any better than a jig or maybe a jigging spoon in deeper water when you got to get deeper. But heck yeah, man, they work. They will get the bites. Charlene is saying, are there any diagrams of the different types of Bay Bridge pilings, particularly below the surface structure, available? Yes, there are. I do not have them at my fingertips. If you plug into the Google machine and work it hard, I think eventually you'll find them. I know you can come up with them. I've done it before, but not in years. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there are like 6 different specifics. And most of them, what you see above the water will kind of tell you what's below the water. But particularly, like I was saying earlier about that one to the right of the first spider piling, where you can see 2 arms coming down and then a part going across. That's something that you can't see, that underneath of that there's open again and different legs again, which the diagrams will do. Man, I wish I had them. I could just click you over to a link on a Fish Talk article, but I don't. But they are out there.
Is there any type of marine electronics that might help you assist what's going on down there?
Well, it's a good point, Zach. Thank you. Yeah, side scan absolutely will. And you can see that stuff on the side scan as you're going around them. Actually, if you had live imaging on your boat, I'll bet it would do it even better. I have not looked at the Bay Bridge pilings with live imaging, but I'll bet it would do it even better. And Doug's saying, how far up the Chester to run for blue cats now, keeping the boat in through December? So, Doug, I'm not 1,000% sure about right now. As a general rule of thumb, the blue cats will move down as salinity decreases and go up as salinity increases. Normally on the Chester, as soon as you get to that area where the river broadens out and squeezes in, you go upriver from there, you're going to have tons of catfish. Once it broadens out, you're going to have them in the creeks, and then in the broader areas when you have lower salinity. The Chester is far enough up that right now it might not even be that big a deal, but we've had very high salinity because of the drought. It may still have an effect. And man, I don't know what that area is called where it tightens up. See if I can pull it real quick. And I've run there before, specifically to catfish, because that's sort of, from there up, where it's good, or it's going to be good. So Crumpton, definitely. Kingston. It looks like Ash. So once you get north of Conquest Beach, you're going to be in the territory. But once you get up towards, Kingston, Crumpton, that area, that's going to be very reliable all the time. Again, they may be well downriver there right now. I'm not sure what the salinity is. That varies. But once you get up that far, if you go to Chestertown, Kingston, and fish around that bridge right now, I would bet money you're going to be into the blue cats. I'd be shocked if the salinity were high enough up that far that it wasn't true. There's Wayne again. The different Bay Bridge types are discussed in the book. God, I didn't even remember that, and I've read that book at least twice. Mark is saying, is it safe to eat blue cats out of the Potomac? So, Mark, it depends on the size, and the warnings on that are published. And I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, so disregard the specific numbers I'm going to use, but it's something like at 36 inches, they suggest less than, no more than 1 meal a month. So like if you get a 32, don't worry about it. If you get a 36, only 1 meal per month. And again, ignore my numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the warnings are there. If you just Google Potomac River catfish, safe to consume, the DC recommendations will pop right up, and the Potomac River Fishery Commission recommendations will pop right up. You'll probably also get them for both Maryland and Virginia. And those are conservative cautions, right? The government folks are always, look at that. How'd you do that, Zach? Man, Zach popped up that link quick.
Google machine. It's in the comments. That's clickable, guys.
Okay. Yeah, you got that. No time. But yeah, the government agencies are always kind of in, cover your butt mode. So they always give very conservative recommendations for that stuff. So personally, I wouldn't worry about it at all. Yeah, I eat them all the time, and I'm not so worried about sticking to the letter of those recommendations myself, because personally, I feel they're very conservative. That's just my opinion. Do whatever you feel, but you'll have no problem finding it. Will saying, what are you hearing about the bluefin tuna bite in OC? Well, Will, from what I'm hearing, if there was any possibility of having a wind forecast that's acceptable in the next week, I would be running down to the marina immediately after the show, hauling my boat out, putting it on the trailer, and getting ready to go. It's been very, 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 very good. A lot of fish within 10 miles of the beach. Pretty epic action. But awful lot of wind going on down there right now, too. And I've got a very dear friend I was talking to today about this, who's on a 44-footer. He's going out like the next 5 days. He can do that. Me on my 26-footer, I'm not going down. When it's blowing 15 to 20 on the ocean, I just don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't care how good the fishing is, but it's been really good. Davey's saying, can we get a preview of tomorrow's reports? I'm afraid not. Most of what we've talked about, other than the Middle Bay zone, I haven't seen the reports for yet. Dylan hasn't sent them in. He'll send them in to me tonight. I've got an email in my inbox right now. They might be there right now, but I have not looked through them yet. They usually come in Thursday evening, super early Friday morning, so I don't know. Middle Bay, I'm shocked no one's asked about the Middle Bay rockfish fishing yet. Here's an indication for you. For the last month, fishing, yeah, you can get some fish. There are some fish around. There are very few bird shows going off. It's tough to find them. And I generally get somewhere between 2 and 5 pictures of people holding rockfish somewhere in the Middle Bay throughout the course of a week, going in for the report or the reader photos. This week I have none. I fished 3 days within the past week and only caught fish on one of them.
I sent you one on Poplar.
What's that?
I sent you a picture off Poplar, didn't I? That was at least one.
Oh, the trolling fish.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
One report.
There was one. No, 2 out of 3 days, I had 2 skunks, and that included running from the South River to Eastern Bay to Poplar Island to the mouth of the Chop Tank to the Little Chop Tank. Doug's saying he did well in Tillman Reef last weekend. That's interesting. The bird shows have been really brief, really sporadic, really scattered. Very tough to find them. That whole, like I say, 2 of the 3 days I did big runs up and down using binoculars, gyro binocs, every probably 5 miles, and didn't find them on 2 of those trips. Actually, on the 3rd trip, I saw a bird show. It ended before I got there. The only way I caught fish that day was on electronics. It was not by spotting birds because it was already done by the time I got there. But bottom line, fishing's tough. Fishing's been tough. And what I want people to remember is you can go out there any given day and have a really good day. That absolutely happens. It will happen tomorrow to somebody. But historically speaking, when you compare it to Novembers of past years, it's pretty pitiful. It really is. It just doesn't even compare. Stafford saying, you think adding a skirt matters on these BKDs? At this time of year, absolutely. When you're jigging and you want that bigger profile, that big puff the skirt gives. I always tell folks, during the spring, summer, I don't put a skirt on. I don't worry about it. On rare occasions, I see the skirted bait do worse than the straight bait. Not often, but you will see that happen. This time of year in particular, like October, is when I start putting the skirts on everything. And right now, yeah. Can you see it behind? I think you can see it behind me. Look, wait a minute. Oh, shoot. It's hard to figure the backwards stuff on the wait. Where is it? There it is. Right there. Can you see that jig behind me? It's got a skirt on it. And this is just, it's just what I was using the other day. Oh my God, I'm going to knock all my fishing rods over trying to grab them all of a sudden. It's just what I was using the other day. I just put it on the rack when I came home. It's got the skirt. A month ago, well, more than a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that might not have had a skirt on it. And 8 weeks ago, that would not have had a skirt on it. But right now, yeah, they got skirts. Stafford saying chartreuse kills this time of year. Stafford, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use, right? 90% of what I use is chartreuse and white. And there's Bill from BKD. Thanks for support, Stafford. And that skirted jig is a BKD. In case you didn't notice, it is a chartreuse with white on the skirt. I like that white chartreuse combo. That's something that, man, this time of year, that is a biggie. What's interesting is I actually have done really well lately with small jigging spoons, really little guys like that big that are bright silver. And if you remember earlier on tonight, I mentioned all the bait that's out there, but I haven't been able to ID it yet. I haven't seen it up top. I haven't seen bunker, and it can't all be bay anchovies, but I wonder if a lot of it's bay anchovies. And one of the reasons I say that is because the little jigging spoon's been doing really well. That's been like a top producer for me probably for the last month. So I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. Usually when you got this much bait around, at some point you see the school of bunker up top. You go, okay, bunker. Not seen that. Don't know why.
So my buddy Rich was watching, and he just messaged me that he got a nice striper in Eastern Bay on a skirted BKD, although there was a couple bum trips. But there's a few fish around. Mind if we switch gears? I missed a question earlier.
Oh, yeah, bring it on up.
Any thoughts on what happened to Belgrove? We've caught a couple huge crappie and a line yellow perch, but not like it used to be.
I'm going to tell you why that's such an interesting question to me, John, because I grew up in Baltimore. many years ago, I used to fish Belgrove on a fairly regular basis. And what I found was through the years, and I'm going to also mention I have not fished it in a long time. But what I found through the years there was, so those ponds have some level of flow with the river. In some cases, as I recall, they're open to it. In others, they're not, but they overflow back and forth in the river. And there were pretty radical changes with water levels. And when there was a lot of flooding, it could, and there's many of those, several of those ponds. When there was a lot of flooding, it could ruin one and like make another rocking good, and vice versa. It's very similar to, oh man, what are the name of the ponds next to the river on the shore where there are all those tons of little pickerel? Shoot, you know what I'm talking about, Zach? You can park and walk in.
No, sorry.
Now I can't get Belgrove out of my head. Dang it. Idlewild.
Ah, yes.
The ponds in Idlewild. Very similar there. Not all. Some of those ponds are separated from the river. Others, when there's a high flow, they attach to the river. They become part of it. And it really goes back and forth. Amped up sand, sewage runoff, and other pollutants has destroyed those ponds. Storms also filled the river with silt. See, now I kind of half agree with that because the sewage was just as bad back when I was a kid. But the runoff was big. And I don't know if it was runoff or the overflow. Those ponds would overflow. They'd be a bomb for years, several years in a row, and they get better and better and better. And they'd be pretty good. There'd be some kind of big event, and they wouldn't be good anymore. Or vice versa. Like this pond would be okay, and this one wouldn't. Then there'd be one of those big floods, and this pond would be okay, and this one wouldn't. It would change around depending on the different flooding that happened there. Which I guess, as you think about it, that could be related to the sewage, because some of them would be isolated from it. And then when you have overflow, I guess they wouldn't be anymore. But I saw them go, when I lived in Baltimore until I was 28, 29, 27, something like that. No, 26, except for the years I was in college. And we would go down there, through those years. But it was very, it rotated through the years. It got better and worse. If it's lousy now, I would say go back in like 3 or 4 years and try it again. And you might find something different. All right. We are thoroughly over time. Do we have any more questions, Zach, or should we pull a winner here for the Lane's Bridge book?
Yeah, I think we're all wrapped up. We've been switching gears a lot, but one more question going back to the bluefin. How much longer do you think they're going to stick around? Like, how long do you think that fishery is going to be out there?
There is absolutely no telling. And anyone who tells you they know doesn't know what they're talking about. They might look, this cold snap we have right now could send them farther south. They might get down off the Virginia coast. 20 years ago, they were going down off the North Carolina coast. They weren't even sticking around Virginia. They could head out deeper. This cold snap might do absolutely nothing, and they might be there for another month. There is no way to tell. They could overwinter there, honestly. They could overwinter off our coast. Last year, as I recall, I think it was like mid-January when they started to push out. Is that right? I'm going off memory here. Don't hold me to it. But they stuck around for a good long while. They did push a little farther south, and they were a little more off Virginia than off Maryland. Right now, I think they're really they're thick off Maryland. But there's just no telling. It's all weather dependent. It's bait dependent. Which way is the bait going to go? There's no way to predict it. I can tell you this. I've already decided that if there is a weather window that I spot at least 2 days in advance, I will be going down to the marina and hauling my boat out of the water and getting it ready for a trip to the beach. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Should we pick a lucky winner, Zach?
Yes. Which book is this that we're drawing here?
The Chesapeake Bay Bridges. Wayne, you can chime in and give us the full and accurate title. I don't think Chesapeake Bay Bridges is the exact.
Oh, that's okay.
See if he can chime in faster than I can Google.
Well, that's okay. It's going to be an awesome, informative book. Wayne has a ton of books available on Amazon. He's a huge Fish Talk supporter. You can read his monthly column in Fish Talk magazine, and he's got a ton of books pertaining to all sorts of structure here in the Mid-Atlantic. So
I think this Chesapeake Bay Bridge Fishing Reef, I believe, is the correct one.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you right now, all of these books, they cover a lot of different areas. They've all got very site-specific information that digs really, really deep. It's super in-depth stuff. And anyone who fishes any one of these areas is going to be stoked to have the book. I go back, I go back and refer to his books on a fairly regular basis, and his articles on Fish Talk. I'll go to fishtalkmag.com and type in, different. What are you doing? What are you doing, Zach? I got this weird screen. What was that?
Ready to draw the winner, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
So yes, the book is Chesapeake Bay Bridge Fishing Reef. Oh, there it is. I found it.
And the lucky winner is. Who's going to win?
All right, here we go. Please be Wayne. It'd be hilarious. Andrew Ingram.
Congratulations, Andrew.
All right, Andrew, you're how does he redeem his book, Lenny?
Shoot me an email, lenny@fishtalkmag.com, or give me your email in the comments. All we got to do is link up you and Wayne. He will ship it right on out to you, Andrew.
So Andrew's on YouTube, Wayne's over on Fish Talk, Facebook. Sorry. So connecting them in the little comments is going to be hard. So maybe just email Lenny and he'll connect you.
Yeah, shoot me an email. I'm trying to figure out what kind of fish that is it's such a tiny little picture. I can't even see it. What fish is that? It looks big.
He looks. I don't know.
It's a mystery fish. Andrew, what is this fish? What is it? It's a mystery fish.
It looks some sort of tropical-y kind of groupery, snappery thing. I don't know. What do I know?
As long as it's not a tilapia, I'm cool with it. That is my least favorite fish on the face of the planet, I think. Right behind the blue cats. For all the obvious reasons. Well, Zach, thank you so much. And people, thank you for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back next month again, first Thursday of the month, 6 o'clock. That's a regular program time on this regular program space. And Zach, are we a wrap?
Yeah, absolutely. Just check out the fishing reports tomorrow. They go live at noon, usually a little bit earlier, but by noon. Tons of events coming up this winter. So if you're not out fishing, if it's too cold, if it's too windy, check out our calendar. Lots of anglers' nights out. So we got several boat shows coming up just in a few weeks.
Yes.
So before you know it, and all the winter fishing shows are going to kick off too. So we hope to see you out at those.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, people. Catch them up.
I think we should have a little music outro thing before we end. We're gonna end. Anyway, good night.